Of agendas, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Sentence that council adopt the agendas as published on January 31st, 2019, and any and all revisions published February 4th, 2019.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The mayor's report. The City of Thorold will be offering free skates to celebrate Family Day on Monday, February the 18th. Stop by the arena between 10:30 a.m. and 12 noon, and again from 2 to 3:30 to enjoy some time with family and friends. The Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center will be hosting a pasta dinner on Family Day. Dinner includes penne and meatballs, rolls, salad, and dessert. Tickets are $10 for adults, $6 for children, and you can choose from one of two seatings. The first seating is 4:30 to 5:30 p.m., and the second seating is 6 to 7 p.m. For tickets, please call Marty at 289-213-9995. That's Marty at 289-213-9995. All proceeds from this event will support upgrades and beautification of the community center. Not sure what to do this weekend? Why not make the drive to Port Colborne to the Vale Center to cheer on our city team in the Mayor's Cup hockey tournament as part of Sports Fest. Games for the Thorold team are 8 p.m. on Friday, 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. on Saturday, and once they advance, they'll be playing after that, but we won't know the times yet. So good luck to all the teams, and especially Team Thorold. Regional Councilor update, we have none. We'll move to adoption of minutes. General Committee meeting minutes of January 8th, 2019. Councilor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Anthony Longo that the General Committee meeting minutes of January 8th, 2019 be hereby adopted.
Any errors or revisions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Longo, that the regular and general committee council meeting minutes of January 15, 2019 be hereby adopted.
General Committee meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2019. Councilor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, second by Councillor Kenny, that the General Committee meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2019 be hereby adopted.
Any errors or
I'm going to declare a conflict on CC 2019-15.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilors, for the opportunity to make this presentation. A stopwatch. Oh, dear. Okay. I'm just going to read the presentation. Then if you have any questions, I can address them. The Ontario Horticulture Association is a volunteer charitable organization whose mission is to provide leadership and assist in the promotion of education and interest in all areas of horticulture and related environmental issues in Ontario through an expanding network of horticulture societies dedicated to the beautification of their communities. On February 21st, 1929, there was, and I quote from the Thorold Post paper front page article, a splendid turnout at Memorial Hall for the purpose of organizing a Thorold Horticulture Society. And now here we are, almost 90, at our 90th anniversary as a society in good standing with the OHA to ask Council to designate Saturday, June 15th, Thorold Horticulture Day. This year, as the Thorold Garden Club, we rebranded to meet the challenges of the 2019 audiences, celebrates 90 years of service to our community. We will be focusing on continuing to provide amazing speakers from all over the province so our members and community can continue to be made aware of the issues of interest in the environment and the needs of our diverse community. We are anticipating through our fundraising trivia night on May 3rd at Holy Rosary Hall and our membership drive that we will be in a position to help with the revamp of the Richmond Street parquet and place a plaque in dedication of our 90th anniversary. In the future, we would also like to have the opportunity to place a dedicated bench in the new Beaver Dams Park to commemorate our history in the community. To this end, we're also requesting that Council keep us informed about the planning of the revitalization of Beaver Dams Park and any role we could play when the time comes. I've given each of the councillors one of our bookmarks documenting what we will be doing each month, the meetings and the speakers that we will have. I've also provided a membership form. The first Thorold Horticulture Society started by members of council going to the provincial government and having a presentation made in Thorold of why a Thorold Horticulture Society would be a benefit to the community. So I've given you each a copy of the membership form. I spoke to a number of you and a number of people that ran for council this year. And most of them said they were either gardeners interested in gardening or the environment. And we're doing a membership drive this year. So anyone that would be interested in filling out a membership form, please let me know and I'll collect it some other time. That's all I have to say.
Leslie, whereabouts is the Richmond Street parquet located?
You know, when you, I don't know how to explain it, it's sort of the V where Richmond Street goes this way and Pine Street goes this way when you come off the highway. If you were going to turn left onto Pine, there's a little parquet.
Okay.
And actually, the benches are in need of replacing, and the parquet part, they took out the railroad tracks. So the city is, the gardener is thinking of revamping that anyway, and we offered to help with that revamping and to put in a plaque if we can, saying that it's our 90th anniversary.
Thank you.
Pardon? Or, no, we have young people that join as well, and we have adults, and we have a lot of older members. That's one of the biggest problems. A lot of people would like to do gardening, but they work, or they have kids. And so we provided a venue. They can come and ask their questions at our meetings or learn new techniques and all sorts of things at any age.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Do they ever engage the schools to try to?
Actually, I was just talking to Mr. Trainer at Monsignor High School, Monsignor School yesterday. Last year, my granddaughter goes there, and she does fairy gardens, and she's gone to a number of different societies in the Niagara region, making a presentation of how to create fairy gardens. Last year, we went into the school and used the grade 8 classes And they all made fairy gardens, and they entered our annual flower show at the end in June, and won one prize. This year, we're going Education Week, May 5th, 6th, May 7th. It's a Tuesday. I think Nora wants to talk about terrariums. So, yeah, we are getting into school. We attempted to get into all the other schools. It's a lot easier if you have a grandchild that or a kid that goes to one of the schools. But we're going back to Monsignor this year.
Okay, Leslie, I want to thank you for the presentation. Two things on, we'll bring the motion forward at the next meeting to declare June 15th Thorold Horticultural Day. And we look forward to working with you on this great initiative and the great work you do in the community. And we will definitely work with you and keep you posted on what's going on the Beaver Dams Park.
Thank you very much.
But I want to thank you once again.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to motions for support. City of Thorold, Councillor Hanley on locally grown and produced wine and craft beer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, this is, I have one here. I have the correspondence for the town of Niagara Lake. I don't have that one.
That's the one.
That's the one?
Yeah.
That's for the wine and beer? Okay. Sorry. Thanks. That the correspondence received from the town of Niagara Lake from its council meeting of January 4, 2019, requesting the provincial government include in its retail channel regulation-specific policies that to support and expand growth of 100% Ontario-grown and produced wines and Ontario-made craft beer received and supported.
Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Up next, from the City of Thorold, Councillor Wilson, Bill 66, open for business planning bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The province has already dealt with this matter, so I would like to withdraw this motion, please.
Bill 66, Canadian Ontario Environmental Plan, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sentence, that this council call on the province to ensure its Made in Ontario Environment Plan includes municipal right to approve landfill developments. Whereas municipal governments in Ontario do not have the right to approve landfill projects in their communities, but have the authority for making decisions on all other types of development. And whereas this outdated policy allows private landfill operators to consult with local residents and municipal councils, but essentially ignore them. And whereas Ontario's proposed Made in Ontario Environment Plan states that the province will grant municipalities a greater say in sitting of landfills, and whereas municipalities already have exclusive rights for approving casinos and nuclear waste facilities within their communities, whether to host cannabis retail in their communities, and further, that the province has recognized the value of municipal approval for the sitting of power generation facilities. And whereas the recent report from the Ontario's Environmental Commissioner has found that Ontario has a garbage problem, particularly from industrial, commercial, and institutional waste generated within the City of Toronto, where diversion rates are as low as 15%, and unless significant efforts are made to increase recycling and diversion rates, a new home for this Toronto garbage will need to be found, as landfill space is filling up quickly. And whereas the municipalities across Ontario are quietly being identified and targeted as potential landfill sites for future Toronto garbage by private landfill operators, and whereas the other communities should not be forced to take Toronto waste, as landfills can contaminate local watersheds, air quality, dramatically increase heavy truck traffic on community roads, and reduce the quality of life for local residents. And whereas municipalities should be considered experts in waste management, as they are responsible for this within their own communities, and often have decades worth of in-house expertise in managing waste, recycling, and diversion programs. and whereas municipalities should have the exclusive right to approve or reject these projects and assess whether the potential economic benefits are of sufficient value to offset any negative impacts and environmental concerns. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Thorold calls upon the Government of Ontario as part of its Made in Ontario Environment Plan to formally entrench the right of the municipalities to approve or reject landfill projects in or adjacent to their communities, and in that case of a two-tiered municipality, the approval to be required at both the upper tier and affected lower tier municipalities, and further that the City of Thorold encourage all other municipalities in Ontario to consider this motion calling for immediate provincial action, and that the motion adopted by council be forwarded to the Demand the Right Coalition of Ontario Municipalities, that this motion be received and supported.
Any discussion or questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Statement by councilors. Councilor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items I wanted to bring up, but I see here, in regards to the comprehensive zoning bylaw, I see that I have a outline here, when it be completed. I just wanted to bring it up because we were told the previous term of council that this would have already been resolved before we got into the new term of council. So I'm glad to see that, and hopefully we can get this resolved by May 7th, 2019. And this is in regards to these monstrosity of houses that they build in the city of Thorold with 18 bedrooms and 22 bathrooms, or vice versa. So we're trying to regulate it so that we can only have a maximum of maybe 5 bedrooms or 6 bedrooms, whatever the final report will say. But I'm glad to see it's finally coming forward because it is a year behind the times. My other issue I wanted to bring up was in regards to licensing for residents. And if I could, I just have a couple of questions. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the property staff member, I wanted to ask, now that we're in full complement of staff, how many of these licensed or residents that need to be licensed that the city figures they can address per day? If everything works out and...
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, currently we are scheduling approximately, I believe it's approximately 5 inspections per day. But we are looking at that right now as well to see if there's a way that we can try and expedite it and get a little bit more going. We're currently looking at it.
Thank you. Just want to, knowing Jason, I know that you just came on board and whatever, and now we're full complement staff. How long is it that we feel that will be to where the point is that we have everybody in compliance? Do we have a projected date possibly? And I ask that, to be honest with you, the only reason being is we're into a year of where people have already been compliant, and we're yet to get people to be compliant with it. And it's going to be soon upon us within the next year that these original applicants are going to have to now renew.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an estimated timeline for you as to when we'll have it. I'm hoping within the next couple of months, if everything goes well. We have already started going after ones who have not come for licenses. We currently, as of right now, are just shy of 100 properties that we're going after currently that haven't come in for licenses. But there's still a number that we're working on who have applied, and we're trying to expedite that process.
Thank you. Just one other thing, if I could. As a deterrent, what is the fine if a person doesn't come into compliance? What's the set fine that the city of Thorold has for such, or is there one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there isn't a set fine through the city, but through I believe it's the Municipal Act. If I recollect correctly, it's, I believe,
Up to 25,000.
it's approximately around 25,000, yes.
On that note, can we as a municipality, because to me, there's no deterrent. We're not going to fine someone 25,000. And if people know that we as a municipality aren't going to do anything to them, why come and be in compliance? Because you know as well as I know, you're never gonna find a judge that's gonna find a guy $25,000 for not being in compliance and not being the point, but
So Counselor Hanley, why don't you ask for a report on recommended,
like that's.
staff recommendation?
I will, yeah, instead of putting a motion, could I ask that a report come forward as to what we can do as a municipality to set fines, not through provincially legislated, but as a municipality, and I know the issue is, if we as a municipality want to set a fine, we have to get it provincially legislated. We need to get that ball rolling, I feel as a counselor, because we have no deterrent for not coming and getting licensed. So if I could ask for a staff report, come forward, being that within the next year, we're gonna have people coming back for renewals. So, you know, to word it, that's just my concern. Okay, if we could then, thank you very much. For the pasta, for the pasta dinner, sorry, I get so many things. Last one here. Whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management mandate is to foster, improve, and enhance the community center, and whereas the community center in Port Robinson is the hub of a variety of activities in that area, and whereas the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Management would like to continue to offer a few activities throughout the year, and whereas Thorold City Council must provide approval of each activity that falls outside the board mandate. Now therefore be it resolved that Thorold City Council approve the Darlene Ryan Port Robinson Community Center Board of Managers request to host a pasta dinner on February 18th, 2019 at the Community Center, and that the cost to a maximum of $1,223 for the event to be approved and funded from ticket sales from the event, and that this motion be hereby supported and filed. Okay.
In favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No other comment.
Thank you, Counselor Hanley. We'll move on to Counselor Kenny. You're up.
Yes, I would like to move by myself and seconded by Councillor Neal that we refer to staff the parking on Collier Road between Sullivan and St. David's Road to one side of the street. I'd like to get a report from staff on that. I came down there Monday, 9 o'clock, and it was a disaster. Somebody's going to get hurt, and I was called by a couple of the residents and asked me to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll direct that to staff for report. Okay. Thank you. Niagara to give us the report, Director of Public Works and Community Service Report, PWCS 2019-04. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public and staff. Our presentation is quite lengthy, so we're just going to highlight the key items for you today, and the rest of the information is in your package for your information. We're here to talk to you about the proposed options being considered for the next garbage, recycling, and organics collection contract, which is set to begin March 2021. We have received input on these options through our comprehensive public engagement process, which Susan will highlight a little bit later in this presentation, and we are now looking for comments from local area municipal councils on the base service changes and enhanced changes, which I understand we have received from the City of Thorold, so thank you. In summary, the rationale for considering changes for the next collection contract the rationale is based on a few key principles. Number one, increasing participation in the region's diversion programs as a residential diversion rate is stagnant at approximately 56% for a few years now, and a policy change is needed to drive a change, to drive an increase. We're looking for opportunities for potential cost avoidance or cost savings. We're looking at aligning proposed services to match actual usage. And this is based on curbside audits and other studies, available data. We also look to the best practices of Niagara's 13 municipal comparator municipalities, and these are municipalities that have populations of approximately 300,000 or greater. Another principle is improving program communication to residents and businesses. Standardizing container limits for similar sectors as a base service, and this specifically includes the ICI sector, and you'll see this acronym throughout the presentation. This is industrial, commercial, and institutional properties, we'll just call them businesses, and mixed-use properties, which is a business with a residential component. And part of this standardization will help with improving program communication and simplifying contract administration and making things a little easier for the business itself. So the proposed base collection service changes include, firstly, pricing for every other week garbage collection for all residential properties and for those businesses and mixed-use properties located outside designated business areas or downtown areas. It's important to stress that the recycling and organics collection for these properties would still remain weekly, and the garbage limits would double. The second option is a mandatory use of clear bags for garbage with an optional opaque privacy bag, such as a grocery bag, that you put inside the clear bag, and this would apply to all sectors. And the intent of this one is just to increase awareness of what's being placed in the bag, and it will also allow for increased enforcement. So the key driver for these proposed changes, specifically every other week and clear bag, we can see this in the graphic here. But approximately 50% of the household garbage that average household puts at the curb is comprised of divertible organic waste. But unfortunately, less than half of the households use the green bin program. And then further in this graphic, you can see 14% of household garbage could be recycled. And the results for the business sector also show that the diversion programs are underutilized. So we look to our municipal comparators. Municipalities have already put in place things like every other week garbage. We wanted to see what the results were there, because this is concrete experience. So number one, increased participation and capture rates in the diversion programs, our organics and recycling program. And this will help to extend Niagara's landfill sites. Diversion rates increased between 6 and 16% in municipalities that implemented every other week garbage collection. Municipalities like Durham, Halton, Markham, Ottawa, Toronto, Vaughan, Peel, Waterloo have already implemented this. And Markham is unique with a big jump as a result of every other week garbage collection, and then they later implemented clear bag. Another key factor is potential cost avoidance. Based on the region of Waterloo's implementation of every other week garbage collection in 2017, their annual contract savings were approximately $1.5 million. And as a point of reference, in response to our last collection RFP, excluding one submission, which was an anomaly, which is for the current contractor, which we have now in place, but the other bidders on average priced a cost reduction of approximately $1.2 million annually for every other week garbage collection. So staff are therefore recommending inclusion of pricing for both weekly and every other week garbage collection to verify what our cost savings would be and to help with the decision. Another proposed change is from an unlimited large item collection to a 4-item limit per residential unit per collection day. This change would be easily accommodated by households, as most households set out an average of less than 2 items per collection. For the next change, only 6% of households are using the appliance and scrap metal curbside collection service. Tonnages have dramatically decreased over the last 10 years by 94%. Many of these items are also scavenged before the region's collection contractor is able to collect the material. And these items have an alternative. The service could include a drop-off of the material at no charge at our drop-off depots, or a scrap metal recycler could pick up these items. So our initial recommendation is to discontinue the service, and Regional Public Works Committee has also requested that we still get pricing and as an option to help with the final decision. The next service change is about service alignment, matching service to usage, and making things more standardized and consistent between similar sectors. So the proposal is to change weekly garbage container limits for businesses and mixed-use properties located inside the downtown areas from 7 bags to 4 bags, and this is a base service level. And then, and we should note also across the region, on average, the number of containers set out per week at these properties is 2. The next service change is to change weekly garbage container limits for mixed-use properties, similarly from 6 to 4, and these are for properties located outside the downtown area. Again, same principle, standardized limits, and drive increase in participation in the region's programs. This graphic, it just shows the outline of Thorold's base and enhanced collection areas in the downtown area. And we have some audit results I'll quickly highlight to you. For ICI properties located inside the Thorold designated business area, based collection service, on average, properties setting out 1.8 containers per week. Unfortunately, the recycling participation level is very low at 50, and organics at 0%. For mixed-use properties, you don't have mixed-use properties getting base service, so we'll look at mixed-use properties outside the DBA getting base service, 1.1 containers set out of garbage per week. Recycling is not too bad, but organic's still quite low. So now we're going to talk about some of the audit results for the enhanced service area, and I should firstly clarify that base services are those services that are consistently provided across the region for all 12 area municipalities. Enhanced services are those services which are requested by the area municipalities, usually more specialized, and each municipality that makes the request gets charged directly for that service. In Thorold, that cost is approximately just over $43,000. And this represents 3% of the total annual waste management charge to the city of $1.43 million. This is a list, just for your quick reference, of the services that you do receive. And I just want to flag to you the downtown enhanced services. That's what our audit results are showing in terms of service usage. So it's additional downtown waste collection, associated disposal costs, and there is additional blue box collection, again, twice per week. So we are trying to work with area municipalities, your public works officials, and designated business area organizations, business organizations, to try to review their services based on actual usage. And we're trying to, again, increase participation in our diversion programs. So we're encouraging a review to see if we can reduce the enhanced services, garbage container limits, and or reduce the frequency of garbage collection, and or just increase recycling and organics collection to align with the frequency of garbage collection. So inside the DBA enhanced services, the number of containers per set out are 4.5 per property, but again, unfortunately, the recycling is low and organics very low at 6%. Mixed-use properties inside the designated business area, average number of containers, waste containers set out 1.9. Recycling, not too bad, but again, organics participation poor, unfortunately. So now I'm going to pass it over to Susan to provide an overview of the stakeholder consultation process.
Did conduct a widespread consultation, and that began in the late spring, early summer of 2018. We communicated with local area municipalities and their public works officials. We also attended meetings and provided information to organizations representing businesses. And this included business improvement associations, chambers of commerce, and tourism organizations, as well as the Niagara Industrial Association. Starting in October, we began a widespread outreach to residents and individual businesses, and this included holding open houses and community booths in each of the 12 municipalities. The key tool that we used to gather feedback through this process was surveys. So our online survey had a large number of responses. We had over 6,600 completed responses. We also did conduct a random telephone survey, and we completed 1,250 surveys that way. And we do have some preliminary findings from those surveys available this evening to look at. And this is a question from those surveys. If you had to make a choice between clear bag or every other week garbage, which would you choose? So these results for the full Niagara Region survey. You can see that on the telephone survey, clear bags were preferred over the every other week garbage. There was also 21% of the respondents who would choose both. On the online survey, the preference was for every other week garbage over clear bag, although the highest preference there was for neither. We can look at the same question, the response is just for Thorold. In this case, it was slightly different than the region-wide. In this case, for both the telephone and the online, the preferred choice was every other week garbage over clear bag. So we do have some results in addition to the every other week garbage and the clear bag results. For the 4-item limit on large item and the elimination of the scrap metal collection, these were both largely supported by the majority of the residents who did respond. The majority said that it would have little or no impact on their household if these changes were to be made. And looking at the questions for businesses inside the designated business areas, there was a slight majority that said they could manage a reduction to 4 garbage containers, and that would be for the base collection service. For those who are receiving enhanced collection service, they felt that they would find it to be a challenge to reduce their collection by one day per week. For the businesses, the mixed-use properties that are outside of the designated business area, only 1/3 felt that they could manage reducing from 6 containers to 4 garbage containers. Just move ahead to next steps. The region is asking for the following from local area municipalities by February 20th. First, the comments and position on these proposed base collection service options that we've reviewed here tonight. Second, we're looking for verification of current or any additional enhanced services. And this would include an interest in provision of large item collection service as an enhanced service to multi-residential and mixed-use residential units. And this would be in a manner parallel to the service that is currently being provided to the low-density residential sector. So if the sector were to have a 4-item limit per collection day, then this would also apply to those properties as well. And the final item is a verification if any municipality would like to include a per stop price for in-ground public space recycling and litter bins, and or for in-ground for businesses, multi-residential, or mixed-use properties, and that is for all streams. And this would be as an enhanced service under the provisional items. That concludes our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Now we're open for questions, and we're open for questions, not comments. Comments can be made when the report comes up, so you're just here to ask questions of the presenters right now. I'll start with Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is that of a mother's from a residential standpoint. Was there any thought put into diaper collection, and that could be for elderly or people with small children, but that's not an item that can be recycled. And I could only imagine the consequences of keeping that in your garage or near your home for 2 weeks would be substantial.
Through the mayor, currently we do have garbage limit exemptions for children's diapers, home and daycare, medical and group home, plus special set-out service, which would continue under every other week collection. And with regards to how a household can manage by keeping the material for 2 weeks, we do again look to our municipal comparators that have had this in place for a number of years, and they do indicate that residents successfully adjust, and it partially relates to how the material might be packaged or stored more in a cool area or airtight container. So we have reviewed that aspect, and we can provide some tips to residents on how to manage it if this service is approved. But again, it's been successfully implemented in many jurisdictions in Ontario. So we have some good case studies to utilize and leverage in our communication, promotion, and education if we were to implement that service change.
And so if the household was not able to keep those products for 2 weeks, is there another option for our residents to dispose of it other than people just throwing it out of their car and littering our streets with diapers?
Yes, actually, there's an option for the entire range of recyclables, organics, and garbage. We have a number of drop-off depots in Niagara, which could be utilized.
So you mean the dump basically is where they would go?
Through the chair, there's residential and commercial drop-off depots, which have contain a landfill in 2 cases, and in Fort Erie, there's also there's just a drop-off area where you can also take hazardous materials and other divertible materials. Plus, residents can also take their material to the Walker landfill drop-off depot.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you to the presenter. Green bins, 48%. Did I see that? The residential only use 48% of green bins for.
Through the chair, that based on a waste comp study, it's approximately 48% of households, low-density households, are using the program.
And this has been going on for how many years now?
Since 2007. I think it was relaunched also in 2010, 2011. So there was a big campaign with free containers distributed, and that was near the time that we dropped to a 1 container limit. So the launch was packaged with those service changes.
So my question to you is how we're going to increase the usage of green bins, which is our major part of this program from my perspective. How are you going to get an increase from the general public on this? What's your program?
Through the chair, the evidence is based on, again, our comparator municipalities, Durham, Halton, Markham, Ottawa, Toronto, Vaughan, Peel, Waterloo, and there may be others, where they saw a range between 6 and 16% in the diversion with the introduction of every other week collection. It's the driver because people want to get the organics out of the garbage into the stream that is collected weekly. So that's a critical program change or policy change. In order to increase diversion, especially in the organics program, every other week has been proven to be very effective.
Okay, my second question is in the clear bags. Who's going to audit it? Who's going to come around and check those clear bags and make sure they don't have items other than what should be in those clear bags?
Through the chair, the collection contractor would be primarily responsible for identifying on collection if there's recyclables, organics, or other unacceptable materials in the bag. On program start, if this was implemented, we would start with like warning stickers. We have outreach staff. So there would be, again, lots of promotion, education, and outreach to help with this change. But essentially, it would be the collection staff, the collection person.
Warning sticker, you gotta wait like 2 weeks to put it in.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My first question through the presenter. Did the region do any comparables as far as costing with municipalities to provide the service in-house? Because I see that all your scenarios I see here are from municipalities that use private contractors, whereas Guelph, London, Hamilton Downtown, Toronto City do it themselves. Are any of your comparables with municipalities that do the service in-house?
Through the chair, we have looked at some Hamilton results, but Hamilton has not yet transitioned to every other week garbage collection. Toronto, I believe, does use in-house staff, a combination at least of private and in-house.
So, thank you then. My second note then would be, has the region ever considered recycling depots for residents to bring the recycling materials themselves to be compensated for it? And I ask that because if you look at most products, it says where applicable. And I know that in Western Canada and Eastern Canada, it's implemented where recycling depot is where you can bring your bottles, your cans, your plastics. Has that ever been considered? Because I look at it as this, is that if there's a compensated effort by a resident to bring it, they'd be more likely to cash it in, knowing the money's going into their pocket. Has that been considered?
Through the chair, the return to retailer or deposit return type system is typically driven at the provincial level because of the complexity around that and the need to work with the producers and retailers in that regard. And I know that deposit return is very successful in terms of diversion impact. However, Ontario had taken an approach many years ago to focus on what was seemed to be more convenient service, which is at the curbside. So in terms of a policy change or strategic change, that could come, again, but it's more at the provincial level. As part of the transition to full extended producer responsibility, you may have heard of some movement in that regard. There could be potential changes, but again, there's concern that convenience will suffer, residents' accessibility may suffer too, because putting it at the curb versus having to go to a drop-off location is seen sometimes as a disadvantage.
I'll follow up that. As the overseer of our sanitation service in the city of Thorold and all the region, has the region ever considered that? Because you, as the region, should be our naysayer to go forward, not me doing it as a resident. Have you considered that? As soliciting the province to go for a pay per your recycling depot?
Through the chair, we have the position that has been taken more so is to ensure that we have a very convenient and accessible service to residents and not decreasing the level of service.
Thank you. Next question. What benefits would there be for municipalities that recycle more than others? I ask that because it was made to believe at one time we, the city of Thorold, were recycling more than other municipalities. So will there be benefits if a municipality is noted to recycle more than other, or will all the costs still be shared equally? And if so, what benefit it is to us as a municipality then to encourage such?
Through the chair, largely the cost savings would be shared across the region, and the costs are charged to each area municipality based on the number of households each municipality has, with the exception of the enhanced services. So if there is a push to put in place changes for enhanced services, that may result in also increased diversion, that would have a incremental impact on your budget, but largely, the region as a whole benefits when every municipality and all service users make an effort to divert more, extend our landfill site capacity, and there's many environmental benefits associated with it. And just to quickly highlight, but again, the cost savings of potentially 1.5 million, 1.2 million annually would be shared across the region.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Has the region considered compensating municipalities on the recycling percentages? Not equally across the board. I feel that would be a driver to get people to recycle more. Have you considered that in your?
Through the chair, because our collection contractor, in order to maximize efficiencies in terms of collection, we have not restricted the contractor to picking up materials within a municipal boundary, because that would be the only way to validate by tonnage through measurement as to what each municipality would be diverting. And that was seen as a cost-saving measure that, again, everyone benefited from, to eliminate municipal collection boundaries. So that was implemented in the last collection contract.
So there's no benefit to one municipality recycling more than another?
At this point, it's largely shared.
Next question. I do have a few. Seeing that you're talking about recyclable and clear bags, you said stickers. And presently, when a sticker is put on the bag, it's left behind. Is that what's going to continue to happen? So if you were to come to my residence, I have a clear bag, there's recycling materials in there, you're going to leave the bag behind now, right? You're not going to pick it up.
Through the chair, that would be the intention of that Clear Bag program. But again, I just want to emphasize there would be a period of outreach and promotion, education. We'd have a strategy to help with the transition to a Clear Bag program if that was approved to go ahead.
Okay, next question. It's well known that within the region and all municipalities, there's been an extensive amount of rodent population and rat problems. In fact, I received a call today, and I believe our municipality, the city of Welland, the city of Niagara Falls, city of St. Catharines, will have a grant towards such. Has the region considered having a grant available to residents of the region to address rodent problems? Because I feel there will be an increase if it goes to a bi-lane pickup, and if a clear bag is tagged and left behind, it only gives a reason for a rodent to be there. Because the region hasn't addressed it yet.
Through the chair, if I might answer that in two parts. Number one, in terms of if there is concern with rodents, there is option of putting a clear bag in a solid container. In order to minimize attracting rodents, by putting the organics in the green bin, which is a more secure location, that will help deter or minimize the problem. So getting some of those smelly organics that really create odor into the weekly organics container, the green bin, should help in that regard. With regards to a subsidy or something along those lines, I don't believe we have ever looked at that. I don't know that it would be a waste management jurisdiction thing, but we could perhaps flag that to public health for you.
Okay, one last question. In regards to organics, 80% of our downtown businesses do not have organics. So to limit them to the specific amount of bags, because your reasoning is to try to get people to recycle more in regards to organics. So I could name you all the restaurants in downtown Thorold are the ones that would basically have, Elio's shoe store, his property isn't going to have organics. You know, Pacero's clothing store isn't going to have organics. And you're limiting them to the amount of bags that they can put out because your reasoning is that's going to encourage them to recycle more in organics. But if they're not using organics, why are these people being penalized in a sense?
Through the chair, on average, we're seeing usage rates which are below the limit, especially on the base service. There is room for improvement on the blue and gray box recycling program. They're still being underutilized. But even a non-restaurant type of property, you're going to have lunches, meals, snacks, non-food organics, paper towels, and the list is quite long as to what is accepted in the green bin program. So their staff are also available to help come out, to talk to businesses, help them put together a program, because oftentimes the potential isn't recognized as to how much can actually be diverted from the garbage stream. It's quite significant.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll wait for the report to come forward, because I'm sure there'll be a lengthy discussion on that day.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Councillor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I was just wondering, I was at the BIA one that you had, and for prosecuting people who dump, because I know one of the problems that comes up is more illegal dumping. And we have DeQ Road, we have Niagara Falls Road and Thorold South. They're dumping grounds in our city. What is the region's proposal to prosecute these people? I know you said you go through their bags and stuff. Have you prosecuted people like that? Will you put more signage up that the city doesn't have to do? And how will you curtail that? Thank you.
Through the chair, we actually have a good summary of the illegal dumping initiative going through our Waste Management Planning Steering Committee, which, if I may, can forward it to this council to be part of your agenda. It details the reporting, which has been occurring and increasing through the illegal dumping awareness program, the partnership between the region, area municipalities, and Crime Stoppers, so that awareness is increased that illegal dumping is not acceptable, and encouraging people to report on it. In terms of illegal dumping and some of these program changes, experience in the other jurisdictions show that with the program change, illegal dumping will temporarily increase. Any program change of that nature may cause a bump, but it will go back to, unfortunately, normal levels. This is a provincial-wide issue. And even materials that we accept at the curb sometimes end up at the legally dumped, or materials that we don't accept, like tires, end up being illegally dumped. But there's always options, either through our curbside program and or drop-off depot, or household hazardous waste collection days. So we also do our best by having a very comprehensive social marketing outreach program, solid communications to raise awareness of options and the services we provide to residents and other service users to help minimize illegal dumping incidences.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to our presenter. In the region and cities that had statistics compiled that you showed in your presentation, was there any data available for, as you said, there was an increase in illegal dumping we're expecting, or as Councillor Hanley said, rodent infestation? So were there any statistics or data collected on that question?
Through the chair, we did ask those questions, and illegal dumping again came back as there was a temporary increase, but again it dropped down to regular levels. Residents successfully adapt to change, so that was managed. And in terms of rodents, again, how materials are being packaged and so the curb makes a big difference. And putting the organic food and non-food organics that are acceptable in our programs, again, things like Kleenex, paper towels, things of that nature, into the green bin, which is more secure than the average bag, helps with the rat problem. So you're not seeing an increase due to every other week garbage collection. And in the case of clear bag, the option is there still to put in a secure container, a garbage can.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Or do you actually have stats like you had for the cost savings and things of that nature that you showed earlier?
In terms of like tonnage, we received information from area municipal staff. We put those questions to them and also reviewed their reports that were submitted to council. So we don't have an actual tonnage or a number of incidences. We can try to go back to maybe Waterloo, which most recently implemented in 2017, and see if they can offer us something and provide that back to council.
Two questions I have is, am I correct that at the region, the clear bag option was actually, the region didn't really recommend it, but it was put back on the agenda by council so that we'd look at everything moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the other question I have, which really is a big question for me, is why in all of this do we not look at closed-top containers, especially if we're going to every other week garbage? Why was that not looked at as part of this study or even asked of the public as part of the study?
I will start, and Susan has some good data in that regard. We actually had initiated, as part of the last collection contract, a study, or actually completed a study to review the cost to move to WeeStreem system, so combining blue box and gray box material together, and implementation of carts. And the costs back with the last contract were very prohibitive, and that also involved retrofitting the MRF to go to single stream, so that residents wouldn't have 4 large carts, just 3, so we would have to go single stream recycling. So we had evaluated, a consultant completed the study and looked at that compared to other scenarios, and it was determined that the costs were just too substantial to change at that time. More recently, the province, I had mentioned full extended producer responsibility, was looking at transitioning our programs so that municipalities may or may not have a role in providing recycling services going forward. So investment that was, again, Susan will go through the numbers, but very substantial, wasn't seen as something that would be wise at this time, given the change and the investment needed. So there was a solid review with the last contract, the current one that we're in, and also scan of what the costs are and implications from municipalities that have this in place, combined with some change in provincial direction. It was determined that the costs may be too prohibitive. And Susan, would you mind speaking to that?
Sure. So just to give some numbers to that, we looked at some of the costs that are incurred when these systems are put in place. And we look at Peel Region specifically. They had more recently gone to this program in 2013, I think it was. And so based on 325,000 single-family homes, their initial cost just for purchasing the carts was $35 million. They have an annual maintenance and replacement cost of $1 to $3 million. There's also additional costs, as Lydia mentioned, in the processing. It's costs 27% more for the average cost per marketed ton of processed recyclables to process the material through the single stream system that they have to use when you go to a cart system. They also experience significant increase in contamination rates. So prior to implementing their cart system, they had a recycling contamination rate of over 10%, and their organics contamination was approximately 3%. When they moved to the cart-based system, they doubled those contamination rates. So that means the amount of materials that were going into the recycling and into the organics that were not supposed to be there had increased. So recycling increased over 20%, and the organics increased over 6%. So that means that further down the line, when they're processing those materials, they have greater costs They increased the downtime in their recycling facility. It increased to an estimated 26 days of processing to remove that non-recyclable material. They had stoppages increased from 11 per day to 21 per day. And overall, with the increased costs of having to landfill that residue, manage the materials that came through, and cover the processing fee adjustments, for a single year, it was about $500,000. So there were significant costs that they incurred through that program. To address that, they did use some education programs, which required additional staff and cost as well to implement those systems.
It's on the, most of the information which you're given though is based on the recycling side. But the bigger concern is that if you're only picking up garbage every 2 weeks, and people put garbage out on the side of the house, what are we doing to mitigate that? Closed-top containers, would that not be a better system on the garbage side to mitigate problems with the rodents and garbage being just thrown at the side of the house in a plastic bag?
Currently, we actually do allow residents to use closed-top containers. We have a general spec that we have for containers for all the streams. So even now, a resident is free to use a cover. So there's not a lot of covers for the blue box and gray box available in the market, but there are some, and there's some online. And there are some containers that literally have a lid, just like a garbage can. So those are available currently, and the contract is written currently so that they're all acceptable. So there is still that ability for any resident to utilize those containers.
Questions? Okay, I want to thank you for the presentation, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on. Calls for reports to be brought forward from consent. Does anybody want to pull any reports from the consent reports? Councillor Longo.
Can we pull CC 2019-13, please?
Does anyone else have any reports to pull? Okay, we'll pull that report and we'll, the rest of the consent reports. Do I have a mover for the rest of the consent reports? Councillor Neal.
So moved.
So moved. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, that leaves us GCC 2019-13. Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to pull this one. There's been some discussion on it. I know a lot of councilors have been called by a resident regarding it, and I'm not sure how we're going to proceed, so I thought I'd pull it out and maybe have some discussion. What it is it's a charitable organization looking for some free ice time at the arena, and I'm not sure how council wants to proceed with this. It's kind of time sensitive, so
I'll send this to the city clerk, Donna.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the correspondence was received and put on your agenda with a referral to our Director of Public Works. He'll be coming back with a report on February the 19th.
perfect, thank you. Just wanted to make sure it was taken
Okay.
care of.
Everybody good with that? Okay, so can I get a mover for CC 2019-13, Councillor Hanley? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, discussion reports. PWC S 2019-02, DQ Road Trail Project. to our Director
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Two
of
recommendations.
Public Works and Community Services.
Sorry, two recommendations. The council support the construction of a multi-use trail on DeQ Road west of Merrittville Highway. And number two, that staff be directed to work with the various stakeholder groups to finalize the design, approvals, and cost-sharing arrangements for the funding consideration in the 2020 capital budget deliberations.
Can I get a mover for the report? Counselor Neal.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Speakers to the report. Counselor
Just a-
Neal.
Just a short thing that Glenn Gordon phoned me today, and he said, no problem putting his name out, is that he's willing to pay for half of the cost of the trail when it is done, and he'd be willing to go this summer if we can get everything in place even this summer, so it can be moved up. And he will front load the cost of the trail until we make a decision.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. PWCS 2019-03. It's 2018 capital project updates, Patricia Street, Towpath Street, Bridge Street, Canby Street. And again, I'll turn that over to the Director of Public Works and Community Services.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. 7 recommendations. The first being that funding from the 2019 capital budget be pre-approved for the Patricia Street Sanitary Sewer and Road Reconstruction Project. Number 2, that an additional $40,000 be approved for the Patricia Street project and funded from the Sewer Capital Reserve. Number 3, that Alfie Dome Construction Niagara be awarded the contract for the Patricia Street Sanitary Sewer Replacement and Road Reconstruction Project at its corrected tender price of $830,355.20. Number 4, that the related engineering agreement with Kerry T. Howe Engineering Limited be amended to reflect the additional costs involved with the scope changes on the Patricia Street project. Number 5, that the engineering agreement with Associated Engineering for the Towpath Street urbanization project be amended to reflect the additional costs involved with the scope changes to the project. Number 6, that the Bridge Street East Canby Street water main replacement project be deferred to a future date in the capital forecast to allow time to complete additional condition assessments on other related infrastructure within the project limits. And finally, number 7, the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute all necessary contract documents.
Can I get a remover for the report? Counselor Senton. Speakers to the report. Counselor Neal.
Yes, number 4 and 5 on the report, and it says additional costs involved with scope changes in both of them. And I know we've had a couple others recently that have changed dramatically after the contract has been let. Is there something to go so that we don't get these coming again in the future, these increases in costs?
From what I understand, these projects were originally approved in the 2018 budget with cost estimates based on the projected design. As they got into the design, they found that scope changes based on public input, condition of existing infrastructure, it made more sense to do it right, or at least hold off until they could put enough funding in place to build the project the right way, so that we're not going back in after the fact. So the towpath project, a little bit more sensitive to public comments. I think in moving forward, we're looking at completing the design phase in 1 calendar year, 1 budget year. That will give us an opportunity to scope out all the issues, confirm condition assessment, confirm what the public input is going to be, and then when we consider the construction budget in the subsequent year, we'll know exactly what we're building and we'll be able to get the tender out in a timely way.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Holman, is there any numbers for those overruns yet, or?
The overruns for,
For the Patricia Street and towpath?
Those numbers
For the
are in the
increase.
report. They're in the report.
Okay.
Okay?
yeah,
thank you.
so Mr. Mayor, the increase in engineering fees on the towpath project are within the project budget, so no additional funding is required, but we require council's authorization to amend the engineering agreement, which had an original scope of work.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, PWCS 2019-04. Niagara Region Waste Collection Contract, proposed based and enhanced levels of service. Again, I turn that over to the Director of Public Works and Community Services.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. 3 recommendations. First, that the City of Thorold support the recommendations outlined in the Niagara Region's report, PW3-2019, and that's Appendix A of that report. Number 2, that Regional Council be guided by the City of Thorold resolution dated January 15, 2019, respecting the provision of in-house waste collection services. And finally, number 3, that regional staff be encouraged to research and source better alternatives for recycling containers that will reduce the amount of debris and litter collected along city roads and public spaces.
Councillor Longo. So move the report. Speakers to the report. Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carry. PWCS 2019-05, Ross Street Reconstruction Project. Again, I turn that over to the Director of
Mayor.
Public Works and Community Service. Busy night over there.
Midnight to lose my voice, sorry about that. Yes, 2 recommendations here on Ross Street. First, that the staff be directed to monitor the effectiveness of the recent on-street parking restrictions on Ross Street. And secondly, that funding in the amount of $75,000 for the engineering design phase of the Ross Street Road Reconstruction Project be included for consideration during the 2020 capital budget deliberations.
Can I get a mover for the report? Councillor Hanley.
So move the report, Mr. Mayor.
Speakers to the report. Councillor Neal.
Just when we pass this tonight, can we let the residents of Ross Street know that this is what's happening in the future?
Mr. Mayor, I have had some discussions with Ms. Ashby on Ross Street that we're looking for some solutions, and you'll see that in the report it provides an opportunity for them, if they so wish, to widen their own driveways on an interim basis to allow parking to be contained on-site. They seem comfortable with that, although the preference would be to have some exemption to the current parking bylaw. I think now that we've established that it's not safe to park on the road in the current condition, it would be premature for us to allow that to occur until we've completed our review.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions, Councillor Neal?
Maybe half. I think the rest of the people on the street, other than the Ashbys in this particular case, should know that we're moving forward with reports and coming back with recommendations on how to upgrade that particular street, and maybe the driveways are one part of it, but so that everybody in that street knows what's happening.
So we can get that, and I'll.
So, Mr. Mayor, we're looking to notify the residents on Ross Street of council's decision tonight, and if they have any other questions, they can deal with us.
That's great. That's fantastic. Okay. Any other questions? I have a mover. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. CC 2019-11, council and board committee appointments, fourth round of applications. Turn this over to our clerk, Donna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So councilors have their binders on their desk this evening. We have some applications to the Age-Friendly Committee, so that's under tab number 1. There is one person interested in being reappointed to this committee. This person has sat in the previous committee and is pretty active in when she's there. Would someone like to recommend?
I move we recommend the person on
Okay.
to the Age-Friendly Committee.
Councilor, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That's Jean Sick being reappointed to the Age-Friendly Committee. The second committee, under tab 2, which is Parks, Trails, and Recreation. Oh, I'm sorry, tab 2 is Allenburg Community Center. We have the one incumbent wanting to be reappointed.
Councilor Longo. Have a mover. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Debbie Eller has been reappointed to Allenburg Community Center. Under tab number 10, which is Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee, we've had one resignation from the committee, Andrew Hayward. He's unable to make their time slot due to his work schedule, but we do have another applicant come forward that would like to take his place.
Councilor Wilson moves the applicant. Any discussion on the applicant? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That's Marcia Capola to Parks, Trails, and Recreation. And the last one is tab number 11 to Active Transportation. One applicant.
I get a mover. Councilor Wilson. We have a mover. Any discussion on the applicant? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That name is Rihanna Burkholder.
That's good. Okay. We're gonna move the camera. Okay. Okay. We're gonna go back into regular council to move the council committee and board meeting minutes. I have Councilor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Ken Sentence that council receive and file the minutes of the committees of council, local boards as presented.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now we're going back in general. Eh? Okay. So now we're going back into general committee, and we're gonna be going, I need a motion to go in camera on the chief administrative officer's verbal report, 2 verbal reports, and the city clerk's verbal report. And in-camera general committee meeting minutes of December 18th, and in-camera general committee meeting minutes of January 8th. Can I get a motion to go in camera? I got Councilor Decker. All those in favor? Okay, before we go into camera, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll meet in camera. And then